in the first place. And I wanted to kind of go back to my initial, we don't have to talk about my story per se, but my initial story was I needed to find a way to solve the problem I was having that my society couldn't help me with. And I think that it's a hard thing to do because we've lost so much. I don't come from a tradition that a society that has a built-in tradition that's still strong of ancestral ways that are, you know, reciprocal with the earth. I can do that. And I've had to learn from other traditions, and I continue to learn from other traditions and see like Merissa said, the similarities between what our people did, the European people did, prior to, having their traditions taken away from them as well. But I think the reason why people keep coming back to it is like agency of like, you're not finding answers for your own life, and you have to seek a spirit or spirits to help you with a problem, or something happens from the spirit world, like what Leila was talking about and what, Marissa's talked about too. And where you're like, okay, well, wait a minute. I need help navigating this in a way that's going to, make me healthy and, and not be traumatized by it. But I also wanted to mention that I thought this Isis character and the things that they mentioned that I just read to you, the fact that she is associated with fighting for truth and justice, or defending truth and justice, and she also summons or works with the elements. I don't want to say it's a domination thing because it's not. That would be a very 21st century way of looking at it, or 20th century way of looking at it. But to work with the elements or the land. And this is sort of like what I'm trying to get at today is human people in 21st century are still finding a way that they can to find balance in both their own life and in the world we live in by seeking out the ancient ways wherever they come from. And it's a difficult thing to do, especially if you don't come from any tradition. If you have a built-in tradition with everything written out for you or orally transmitted to you, you're a lucky person. Most people don't have that. And, this requires a lot of, like we said, on the job training, and also, just study and practice. But one of the things I also wanted to mention is also the duality, not duality, but multi-level aspect of this kind of sacred activism that we're talking about too, because I'm trying to talk about maybe 2 or 3 things at the same time, which is probably a little difficult to do. But this sacred activism part is, for example, when Merissa was talking about calling the White House, and also working with time spirits, which is super, super awesome. One of the things I did that I actually learned from her is I work with Tyr, and it's really pronounced Tyr probably, because he's kind of the moderator of justice as well. And so I would light a candle with his rune carved into it, and I would try to think of the people, in Gaza, and I've used that also in other situations, for example, with unions in this country, that the working people, whether it's in this country or anywhere else in the world, that they be treated with respect and dignity and fairness. And that's an ongoing problem, as well as what's going on in Gaza. So I'm going to leave it there and see if you guys have anything.
I wanted to say thank you so much for bringing up that show and telling me about it. It's really super wholesome and sweet, and I recommend anybody who wants to kind of get in touch with that era or that period to watch it. But also thank you so much for your acknowledgement of my experience, and it really is something that is learned on the job. I mean, there's no instructions, and I definitely, wish I had some sort of instruction manual on how to do all these things. But this was one of the missions that I was actually chosen for, that I didn't actually volunteer for, at least consciously in this lifetime. But I also wanted to thank you for bringing up that first, and reading that about the show, about Isis and how she's being described, because I've worked with her for a few years, and I didn't realize, all the things that you were mentioning, because I guess she works through me, and so I do work with the elements, I do work with animals, I do work with um, the sense of justice, and speaking for the voiceless is such a big part of my identity. And so it's almost like this was kind of a blind spot before you mentioned it, so I really appreciate you bringing that up. And I also want to thank you, Merissa, for also teaching me about how to work with Tyr, because this I definitely needed help this week to try to really educate a lot of people on what's happening in the Middle East. And I guess I just wanted to bring up one more thing about my experience, especially because I was working so closely with ISIS. I actually infused some of my channelings from her into a Lemurian quartz. And the evening that I was asking for help, I remember looking at the crystal and it just shining like a bright, bright white light, which has never happened. And so I really felt, comfort in knowing that she was there, and the angelics were also present in helping us all deal with this. So I think we're all kind of connecting with the spirits to deal with this in different ways. Um, but I did also want to ask you both a question, I think because you have some experience with working with animals. I mean, I know around eclipses, the animals kind of go a little crazy, but I've had this mouse that has just been running around in the apartment, and I've never had an issue with mice in my entire life. And my partner has been here for almost 13 years, probably seen a mouse one time. But this mouse literally attacked me. And not really attacked me, I'm sorry, I don't want to put that onus on the mouse, but basically did like a targeted boop on my foot with its snout yesterday, or the Friday the 13th. And I was so confused. I'm just like, I know the animals are trying to tell me something, but I don't know what they're trying to tell me. So I don't know if you have any insight on that, or what that what may be happening. Maybe they're in distress and are pushing us and are telling us they're, also fighting for peace. Like, what are we doing as humanity? Maybe it's like a wake up call, but I'm really curious to hear what you both have to say about this.
Marissa, what do you mind if I let you answer?
Um, Usually, like, okay, I'm not the kind of person who usually does it's a mouse and mouse means this kind of interpretation. Like, usually for me, in my life, when there are animals in the house, there's like one of two things. Like, they're there comforting me or trying to get my attention, or they're telling me something's really badly out of balance in the house. So, sometimes I can tell it's because the boundaries in the house aren't holding. I need to do some work in the house. And other times, it feels like they're saying, we're with you. Like, there was one time when there's a native gecko species in Florida, and it came into the house during this really bad storm. And it was just kind of there in my bedroom, in the place where I do a lot of my spiritual work, kind of just saying, hi, we're here, and then just disappeared and never saw it again. So with your mouse, I what I feel for me is that it's trying to get your attention somehow. And I think it's trying to tell you maybe